Hello everyone. Welcome back to another video challenge. Today we're going to be animating entirely inside of Premiere, inside of Adobe Premiere, creating some simple, lovely little animations that I hope are going to elevate your next project. This is, of course, in a long line of weekly video creative challenges here. We've been dipping into After Effects. We've been jumping back and forth from Premiere and After Effects, but today, entirely in Premiere, we're going to be animating some lovely stuff in here. So I hope you stick around. Hope you make stuff with what we show you. And I hope you can follow along. I'm Evan Abrams. I'm a motion designer. I'm an editor. I'm an animator. I do a lot of tutorials on the internet. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today here. Great to see you. Steve, hold it down. Fergie, hello. Our mod. Wade in the chat. It's fantastic. James, great to see you. Great to see you. Great to see everybody. Laura, hello. Everyone who comes in, hangs out with us, who wants to be challenged in a video way, thanks for being here. If you want to get started, grab the files at the link below, and if you make something after what we do today, share it on the Discord, send it around. It's going to be a little tiny simple thing today, so I hope that everyone can participate. So without further ado, let's have a look at what we're doing. Let's see what we are getting into. So really simply, we're just going to do some essential graphics animation. So animate inside the essential graphics, but we're going to try to do it with an amount of nuance. We're going to try to do it with a little bit of panache. We're going to try to do it simply, repeatably, so we don't have to work harder to create fairly simple things. There's no need to stress ourselves harder than we have to. Anthony, thank you for the compliment. If I worked in radio, you wouldn't be able to enjoy any of these visual things. So what are we doing? How are we going to get here? Right? We're going to be creating little essential graphics clips. And even though the essential graphics panel here, can contain only a single element, or as you can see here, it can contain many elements. And many of the elements that you can store within the essential graphics are Illustrator files, PNGs, they could be text, they could be shapes. It can store so many things. I want you to think about the essential graphics, this clip that we create. Think of it like a container. And we can pour so many different things into that container and have all kinds of little interactions, little animations. We can have so many things happening within the essential graphics container. If we've never interacted with it before, hope today is going to be a good day. So without further ado, how do we get started? Well, I like to get started by having some objects to play with. That's what we want to be doing. Oh, excuse me. That's why I should have had more water before starting the stream today. So what I want to do is I'm going to crack open my files for the day so you can see where we started. It's important to see where we start before we get where we're going. Now, where did I keep them? There it is. So I have this folder here for our simple animation, and I've downloaded from Adobe stock this nice collection here of some emoji, right? The plural of emoji is emoji, of course. And what we're going to do is we just need to separate these things out. So what we can do is we can just right click on it here, open it with Illustrator, one of the other many apps. But again, you might use PNGs, you might use JPEGs, you might use anything at all. Right? It really doesn't matter. There are so many things that you can be deploying in this way. Now, all I've done is literally, let's drag this over. Literally all I've done in Illustrator is select one of the elements here, like so, copied it, created a new thing, a new artboard, 540 by 540, pasted it in here, hit save. That's all. That's all we need to do to kind of rip this thing apart. Oh man, so happy to see everyone who's coming out here. It's gonna be great. Annika, hello. Andrew, hey. There we go. And so what we're gonna do, we have this isolated, we have it separated, we just hit save it as a .ai file if you wish, or like I said, we can use so many different things. Okay, we're going to get out of Illustrator, get this Illustrator out of our way. That's just how we break it apart. Now, don't worry about importing things down into this space here. We don't need to do that. All we're going to do is we are going to find a place on our timeline, set our current time indicator somewhere. We are going to make sure that we have our Essential Graphics window open, and we're going to go Window, Essential Graphics if you don't have it open. By default, it probably looks like this. It looks like a nice browse screen. Just come on over to the Edit screen. Just switch it over to Edit. And we're going to come over here and create a new layer in here. We're going to create a new layer inside of an essential graphic that doesn't exist yet, right? And we are going to say, let's grab something from File, which we don't have to, but it's a lovely thing to do. And I'm just going to navigate. I'm going to navigate to where, spoke too soon, jumped on it too quickly. Navigate from File. We're going to go to my documents. I keep double clicking. It'll try to bring in the entire folder if you do that. From File. I have to go gently here. Simple animation, graphics. And let's say we bring in this emoji here with the hearts in its eyes, right? And I hit import. Now, right away, what we get to look at here is we've created a graphic, and that graphic has one layer in it. And that one layer in it happens to be hearts.ai that it is pulled in. So it's also pulled it in here. And we can move this thing around. We can scale it up, do all sorts of things in it. I think the place where a lot of people get confused when it comes to the essential graphics is not only can I move and scale and change the elements within this clip, but I can actually scale and move and change the entire clip itself. Now, this is because within the essential graphics, there are many, many places where you will find the same word. You'll find scale here. You'll find scale here. You'll find scale here. And remember, all of these things are describing the thing that they're nested under. So all clips have this video group here, but only the little graphics clips have the graphics clip here, the graphics label that tells us we're modifying something about the graphics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to twirl into the clip here, the clip itself. And if you don't see this control panel here, you want to go into the effects controls. So make sure you have Window, Effects Controls open, and I'm going to resize my window a little bit. I'm going to drag this bar out a little bit like this. I'm going to drag this bar a little bit like this. I want to maximize this space here, this right side of the divider where all of the keyframes are going to be happening. And that's right, so many options. We must work mindfully. I think that's great advice. And purposefully, right? Be aware of when you modify a property, what does it live under? What does it belong to, right? Don't just grab it willy-nilly, right? So this object here, right? We want to modify its scale. Let's just make it boop, pop on. Nice poppy pop, bring this thing on. So, of course, what are we going to do? We are going to set a keyframe on the scale of this. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch, which is to toggle the animation on, and then I will move ahead in time. I'm going to move ahead, not too many frames at all. And maybe we set another keyframe, which we can do simply by hitting the Add or Remove Keyframes button. You can tell we've added a keyframe because there's a little diamond out here on this timeline. Scrub back to the start, and let's see. Let's set that first value down to something low, like 0. 0 is a very low number. And if we just play through, whoop, you can see that between these two keyframes, we have motion and movement and all the wonderful things that we want. Because the way keyframes work, a keyframe is just setting an appointment. It's saying what the value should be at a certain time. And that's all that we're doing here. For all of these things, they're all just setting little appointments. Right? And so for this one, we're setting an appointment here at 0 seconds on this clip to be at 0, and then at this point, it's going to be at 190.6. Let's change it to 200, a nice round number. Now, not only do keyframes tell us when and what, but they also tell us how. How do we get from one value to another? To understand the story of how, very important story indeed. We want to twirl down even further. So this little triangular button here says twirl down even further. Give me more details. And now that we're looking at more details, you can see here that we have a linear keyframe. Now, linear keyframes, if you right-click on any keyframe, you're going to be able to see the type of keyframe it is: linear, Bezier, auto Bezier, continuous Bezier, hold, ease it in, ease it out. These are just describing how we arrive here. So if I say ease in, we're easing into the value. We're gonna relax into the value. So think of it like we're softening into the value. Or if you want to think about it this way, imagine you're skiing down a hill, right? Or you're driving up a hill, and this has an eased transition into that value, as opposed to a linear sharp transition. So now if we played this through, it feels like we're relaxing, right? This is relaxing to its final value. You can even get more precise with how you want this to move, and I really hope that you do, by grabbing these little handles. And you know what? Let's zoom in even more. I'm going to zoom in, get nice and close on this thing, and I'm going to grab these graphs. Let's make these graphs nice and big so you can see exactly what's going on here. You might not actually work this way, but for demonstration purposes, I think this is good. So I'm going to grab this handle here, which we can modify by clicking and dragging, and we can pull it over, we can move it up and down, and I want to keep it as on the line as I can, but I'm moving that handle. It's like an airbag? Well, sort of. And now you can see, if you look at this graph, you see a big bump here and then really sharply tapering off. So how does that feel when we look at it? It feels much more explosive, right? It feels like that. Now, what are we looking at when we look at these two lines? Well, this one is what we would call a speed graph, and this one is what we would call a value graph. That is because this is directly mapping the value of the property. So at this point, it's at 200. At this point, it is 185 here. At this point, it is 114 on this graph. The other graph is showing us velocity or speed over time. And so this graph is telling us that at this point, because the line has come down to the very bottom, we know that its speed has reached zero. It's arriving at zero. But at this point, it's at maximum speed. It's going incredibly fast. Right? So that tells us the story about how we get from one keyframe to the other. And that gives us this nuanced control, this nuanced movement over how we are going to move this element in, how it's going to pop in. Now, I'm going to ease out of this first keyframe. I'm going to click ease out on that. And you can see that's now changed the handles and changed the way they move. And in fact, I'm going to grab this first handle. I'm going to grab this first handle, and I'm going to pull it up. So the value is actually going to go higher than its ending value and then settle. So we're getting this very poppy boink, kind of cartoony boink kind of pop that's coming in there. Now, it's important to make sound effects with your mouth whenever you are animating stuff. It's really critical. So this thing is now bouncing on, and I want you to really pay attention to what happens when I grab the keyframes and move them apart from each other. It's like it's scaling kind of the entire thing. So just be aware that if you have manipulated the graphs and then you start moving the keyframes, the relationship between those handles may shift and change a little bit. So keep that in mind. But now we've created this beauteous popping. We've nailed it. We've done such a great job. In fact, I feel like I've done such a great job that I don't want to have to do that job all over again for the other things that pop in. So what I'm going to do is here in the Essential Graphics, I'm going to add some more elements to this space. Now, I believe I can take perhaps, let's see. Let's get crying in here. See if I can drag. Yes, you can. You can drag elements from your project up into this space. And you see now we have the crying emoji coming on as well, popping in right over here. Yes, and that's right. You can make the sound effects in any way you want. Get a slide whistle on your desk. Highly recommended. Now, I don't want to have to redo all of the work that I did on scale. So I'm going to select scale. That selects both the keyframes. I'm going to copy Command C, and then I'm going to come down to this clip here, twirl into it, grab the scale there, and paste Command V, right? Now, it's interesting. It's interesting what happens when you do that, right? You have to be very specific about what you are copying and to where you are attempting to paste it, right? So make sure that when you do this type of thing, we select the property of scale, copy. We select this thing that says clip crying and paste there. So if you don't do that, right, if we don't have stuff selected, it's going to try to put it right back where it was before. So it's really critical that you are selecting specifically where you want to paste this property to, and then hit paste. Now let's watch it through. Pop this, pop that, and now we got two things popping on. We didn't have to work that hard for it. That's exactly what we want. That's exactly what we want. So I'm going to just kind of move these things around. Let's see. Let's take up, some more space on the screen. I think that's wonderful. I'm going to collapse these two, collapse them. And something else that you can do, if you're happy with these elements and we just need more of them, you can actually select the clips themselves, copy, paste, and now we've pasted duplicates of them. In fact, how about I just move them apart from each other like this? Maybe we do that. So look at that. We're getting more and more of them popping on. And you can see their keyframes here. They're represented as little circles, right? But we can't modify them until we twirl open, we select them, and we drag them around. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be twirling open. I'm going to be selecting, and I'm going to be dragging. Now, I love that these things snap together, so it makes it a little bit easier for us to snap our keys together, make a little sequence. Pop, 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 like so. So there we go. We've got these things going nicely. You've made a nice array. Maybe you really fill the screen with them. Maybe you go really crazy with them. You got so many things popping in, going places. And we want this entire group, we want the entire graphic to shrink down, right? Well, thankfully, you can come over here to vector motion, right? And twirl that open. And wouldn't you know it, inside of here, we've got scale as well. This has scale, it has an anchor point, it has a rotation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrub ahead. I'm going to set a keyframe on scale. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a little bit of animation magic here by getting it a little bit larger, right? We're going to puff it up a little bit like that. And then we are going to shrink it down. We're going to shrink it down in a way to 0. Like that. So these keyframes, again, we set keyframes by clicking on the stopwatch to make it animatable. And then you simply adjust the values at the current time indicator. Then we end up with something like that. Now, again, we want to select our keyframes. Let's go ahead and make them Bezier. Let's twirl into the scale. Ooh, and let's really zoom in to really enjoy, to really delight in these, in the shape of these. And what I'm going to do is I am going to pull. I'm going to give this handle a pull like that. And then we are going to give this handle a pull. We're going to pull this handle like that. And so we're going to see that it puffs up and then it disappears. So let's see how we feel about this as I tighten up those keyframes. Whoop, just like that. So now, as you can see, we're giving ourselves a little bit of nuance, a little bit of joy as these things pop on. And I'd really encourage you to find some elements, pop a bunch of them on the screen, and try to control them all as a group or a herd of emoji. What is the plural of a grouping of emoji? Let me know in the comments. If anyone finds out, let me know. Now, we've got all of these elements here that we can put in. You might add in here some text, some vertical text, a polygon, an ellipse, all sorts of things. You can fill the space with things, right? And build all sorts of wonderful bits. Now we've only covered the scale. So let's cover some more. I want to show you some more things about getting nuanced motion while we have time together. So I am going to bring out here Let's see, what do I want to do? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to create another thing here. Maybe I just use this new layer to make a rectangle, which will create the graphical element, and then I can simply drag on, say, this wonderful badge element, and then remove the original shape. All right. This is, again, another thing that you'll find here in your starter files. Get your hands on those if you want to make exactly what we're making here. And what if instead we want to use position a little bit here? So let's do that. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to set on this clip a thing for position, and we're going to set a little keyframe for that. We're going to move that keyframe ahead in time, and let's see, where should the position be? Where should it start? Well, if I just drag this around, you can see, I hope you can see exactly what's happening here. I'm going to expand this a little bit. Do you see this little blue dotted line that is showing up? And I think it's very critical to have a look at that. Now I'm going to just expand this a little bit here, and instead of fit, I'm going to say 50% like this, so you can really delight in sort of the rest of the dotted line that you can hopefully see here. Now, this is the motion path. This is how we're going to get from one place to another. That's how this thing is going to move. And if you wanted control over how this thing goes from one place to another, grab these little handles and give those a pull around. Just like if you were going to be adjusting the handles that we talked about inside the graph. And we can do both. So here in the position, twirl down into that. Let's go ahead and change this. Let's go to temporal interpretation, and we're going to go to ease in. Now, those two words, spatial interpolation, hold on. Spatial interpolation and temporal or temporal interpolation are how does it move through space? How does it move through time? If we went to the spatial here and we said linear, you can see that it becomes a straight line. In fact, I'll grab both of these. We're gonna right click on them, spatial, linear, and now it's a straight line between the two. And really the only thing that makes it not a straight line, oh no, where it's gone. Here we go, come back, right? Is if we select them, and we go spatial, Bezier, that's going to give us our handles back so that we can actually modify these handles and move them around and have a nice nuanced time with how these are moving from place to place, which I think is very critical if you're going to be creating more interesting movement. You're going to be getting things going where you want. Now, again, remember, we can modify our speed graph here, so we can kind of move that in, boing, like that. And maybe at the same time, we want to get the scale moving, get the rotation going, changing all of these things, mixing it up. I want to call attention, because I'm sure the question comes up all the time. Why do we only see one form of graph here? Why do I only see a velocity graph when before we got to see two graphs? We got to see a velocity and a value graph. Well, the answer is simply that these two positional properties operate independently from each other. So the horizontal and the vertical are independent things. They're not locked together in any way. And that means that if we were to graph the values of them, we would need two graphs to look at that. So it just doesn't display it on here. So that's the reason why you're only going to see this one graph for velocity. If you wanted to have nuanced change over the value, come out, grab the handles, move those around, get them going exactly how you want. Now, one last thing that I want to point out about the interface, about this little blue line that I really hope is showing up nicely on the stream. I hope you can see the tiny blue dotted line in here. The dots themselves are important to us. I'm actually going to, let's zoom in sort of this much, and let's not look at that back layer, and hopefully now you can kind of see the dots a little bit more. The tighter the dots are together, the slower the image will appear to be moving across the screen. Each of these dots represents where in time this is. So if you look at the anchor point, you can see that anchor point kind of moving between the dots, between the little stations, right? Now, think of these dots as as the representation of where this is in time as it flows through. So if you see a lot of tight dots together, you know that's a slower part of the animation, a slower part of the motion path. If the dots are looser and further apart from each other, you know that that's a slower time. Or sorry, further apart from each other, that's the faster time because there's more space in between. So tight dots, close, speedy. All right, so always keep these things in mind as you're working. Oh, it's confusing. It confuses me as well. But hopefully this has got you where you want to be. I hope you're creating nuanced motion with the stuff that we've talked about today and that you share it with us on the Discord. That's it for me today. I wish you well. I hope you stay creative. I hope you be kind to each other. And I hope you come back tomorrow for another video challenge where I'm going to challenge you for more stuff. And I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy being with me. Yeah, hope you create things with this. Work your keyframes, work those speed graphs, those motion graphs, produce nuanced motion, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's easier than it seems. That's it for me. I'm Evan Abrams. Find me at EC Abrams all over the internet, but especially here on Behance. So we can hang out, ask me any questions about After Effects, motion, anything you've got. Anyway, that's it for me. Bye for now, and hopefully we see you tomorrow for more Adobe Live.